And this whole idea that there are no limits on what a child can achieve, provided they engage in challenging activities. And one of the things that gets in the way of this is children don't like making mistakes. Nobody likes making mistakes. We love being right. There are no more satisfying words in the English language than "I told you so." We love being right. But the problem is being right gets in the way of good learning, because the best learners know that to make progress, you need to struggle, you need to work hard, you need to fail. Recent research on learning has shown that people who fail and then get corrected actually remember things longer than the people who got it right first time. So making mistakes in classrooms is important, and that's why one of the best things that teachers can do is create an environment in which all children believe that making mistakes is not just okay and tolerated, but actually important in learning. And young people who are serious about sports get this. I don't know a single young athlete who believes it makes sense to lift weights that aren't heavy for them to lift. They know that the only way to make themselves stronger is to lift weights that are really causing them to struggle. And that's why I say to young people, mistakes are evidence that the work I gave you was tough enough to make you smarter. The idea is that if we're not challenging our students, if we are asking them questions to which they always give us the right answer, then we are wasting their time. If our students are answering our questions correctly, we should apologize to them. We should say, "I'm sorry I gave you questions that were so easy that it didn't cause you to have to work hard to get the answer. I will try to do better next time." And the key idea in making our learners confident and willing to tackle problems they've never seen before is this idea that you can't do it straight away. Of course you can't. If it's worth tackling, it's not something you can do straight away. But the fact is they have the mental resources to push themselves, and they realize that when they work harder, they will succeed.
When I look at student cognition across the board, all the research that's there, that piece about the stop and think skills seems to me to be incredibly important. And so things like that working memory, being able to hold an idea in your head and then do something with it, to bear an idea in mind, is crucially important. And what we see is that the distribution of performance amongst kids in their numeracy absolutely correlates with their working memory ability. So the kids who've got low working memory perform poorly, and the kids who've got high working memory perform well. And so we see this interaction between the two. And so for me, we've got to think about what they're learning in maths, the stuff that they're learning. We've got to think about the feel for, so they can bring that mathematics to their numeracy, so they can transfer it. But also, I think we've got to think about the way in which kids are thinking about the mathematics and their numeracy. Because if they're not bearing in mind, when they come across this problem, this issue, this real life problem, if they're not bearing in mind what they know, well, what's the point of knowing it? If they're not got that cognitive flexibility to think about it in this way, or think about it in that way, oh, that's not working. Oh, I'll try this way. If they've not got that, they've been disempowered by their education, not empowered by it.
I think, obviously, the technology comes and they'll like to unpack it into social networking sites, gaming and surfing. But what it all does, and where I think it is different from all other technologies, is it drives you rather than you drive it. The famous printing press and the book, or even the car, you are literally driving. You're in control. Whereas you are very much, if you're playing Grand Theft Auto 5, which has just come out, you are there passively, in awe of this someone else's imaginations that's splashed up on the screen, that's moving so fast and furious and colourful and noisy that it outcompetes the real world. Otherwise, if it didn't, then people wouldn't do it. So clearly, it is offering something that the imperfect, difficult, muted, slow world doesn't offer you. And so therefore I think I think it's rather sinister, just generally talking about the technology, because now people can learn, they can play games, they can go shopping, they can date, they can do virtually everything apart from eating online. So you could have a parallel life, and some people do spend 10 hours a day. And you have kids now, you hear teenagers where the parents just put the food outside the bedroom door as they're on their Xbox. And this is something that I think we ignore at our peril, and it annoys me when people say there's no evidence. Yeah, there is very much evidence. So they're entitled to their own views, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And I was mentioning on my website, I've put 500 references that are not perfect, they're not conclusive, they're not definitive, but they are evidence, and you can't say they don't exist. So it annoys me when people just ignore this, because I think for the first time we are crafting a new environment for young people, or shaping an environment, or stumbling into an environment, perhaps better, that is unprecedented and different from any other, and therefore, given the human brain has exquisitely evolved to adapt to the environment, it absolutely will follow. The brain will change. Now, whether it's good, bad, how we do it, that's what's up for discussion. But what's not up for discussion is the fact that the brain will adapt. It will, because that's what it's evolved to do.
I would like both my children to be powerful learners. We're in a powerful society where we're learning different things. We've got an abundance of different ways we can find things. We just need our children to be able to know what these are. So if they know where they can go and look for different things, that's a big bonus. Pretty much the rest of it they can do. As long as they're confident in what they do, they're willing to ask questions, they're willing to say no, that's not right. They have to have a voice. If they have a voice, I would be more than happy to have, my children go into the workforce, and they'd be really, really good adults if they've got compassion, a voice, and they think for themselves. I think that's really, really good. That's what I would really like my kids to be like.
Increasingly, the issue is how the teacher builds the classroom brain. What by that I mean mobilises the thinking in the room, the collective thinking, and models what it is that pursuit of rigour looks like.
I think things like the electronic version of Monopoly, that's a disaster, because what's the value that's in playing Monopoly gets lost when we do that. Let's do the paper money and and do that. And we're not just doing paper money. We're thinking about combinations of notes and how we're gonna and all these things about risk and reward. We're doing all these things, especially when we're using the paper money. So I think again, when we're buying games, playing games, the intentionality that might be behind it of doing that really helps to create conditions. The questions, the going with the kids' judgments, all of those things create these conditions, I think, that underpin successful learning.
Well, we know that you guys, as teachers, are trying to help us, but as a teacher, we know that you want results from us, and you're scared when we fail. But really, that failure is what pushes us the hardest. When we go through like a formative test and we do a practice and we fail, then we're going to go home that night and we're going to study hard as. We're going to study so hard that when we actually get a good grade, to make you proud of us. Like, we know that it's hard to think that failure could be a good thing, but it is probably the biggest motivator for students.
Powerful learners can pose their own problems, outline the questions to ask, that's the heuristic, refine into areas to investigate. And we had kids from 4 doing this. Refine into areas to investigate. I'm coming to the next one. Outline the questions to ask, bring home the data. So they're going to ask these questions, they're going to collect, generate their own data, then look for solutions. They make some recommendations, and then they make it happen. So these problems that the kids generated, they actually went all the way through that cycle, and then they made it happen at the end. We asked the question, so what? So what worked? So what would you do differently next time? So I had these opportunities of working where I didn't hold the conch.
Also, one of the things that we can bear in mind when we're thinking about powerful learners in literacy is to not think about things like higher order thinking skills as higher order thinking skills. Whatever our definitions of those are, what we've got to do is we've got to think about them as being skills for all of our kids. Because the danger is, if we talk about higher order thinking skills, that we say, well, there are lower order thinking skills, and those are for our less able kids, and the higher order thinking skills are for our more able kids. And that's a change, I think, that we're seeing. That across all definitions of literacy, the OECD definition, our own definitions, we're moving away, further and further away from that mechanistic stuff, from that sort of hierarchy. None of those educational hierarchies stand up to any scrutiny. And so now, by saying these skills, these higher order skills, these inference skills, these being able to read what's not written, hear what's not said, and incorporate that into my understanding of the world, that's now for all of our kids, not just our high performing ones.
I think teachers in general have helped me become a powerful learner, because each teacher has a different way of teaching, which has helped me learn which way I learn best. So I can look at a teacher's structure and know that I don't learn well that way. So that helps me know that I might be a visual person, or I learn more with one-on-one. I learn better in group work and stuff like that.
Pedagogical practice does relate directly to your personality too.
How do you mean?
Well, we can't all be the same teacher. You know, we teach who we are, right? And therefore, and I think the kids like that. You know, that teacher over there, you know, is he likes reading lots of facts and things like that. So he's going to do that. Teacher over there, you can go and ask sticky questions of, you can talk around things. That they get to know that, and
it's not your grades at school that are the most powerful thing that predict your grade point average at university. It's certainly not your university entry score. But what we're seeing is it's your self-efficacy, your self-directedness. If I wanted to achieve that grade, I know how to go about achieving that grade. If I wanted to learn how to do that thing, I know how to go about learning how to do that thing. So I've got a self-efficacy about me, a realistic self-efficacy. I'm not cocky, but I've got this realistic expectation that I could do that thing if I wanted to. And the skills to be able to achieve that. I think that's what we're talking about with powerful learners. And that's the thing, that's the characteristic when we look at the research that predicts university grade, the strongest predictor of university grade point average. And a surface approach to learning has a strong negative correlation with university grade point average. So it doesn't just slow you down, it pulls you back, it sends you backwards, it sets you up not for success, not for mediocrity, it sets you up for failure. And even, and the kids that leave school without any qualifications, if you look at the research about what makes a difference to their trajectory, their economic trajectory, how the kids who move up within organisations, get promotions, move on, are more economically successful. Those kids, they haven't got an academic background. You can't look at the grade so much because they left school without any qualifications. Those kids, it's their self-directedness as a learner. That's the strongest predictor of their economic success. So whether we're talking about empowerment for now or we're talking about empowerment for the future, powerful learners is a no-brainer for me. It's all across the research. If we don't do it, we're failing our kids.